one for now, but my legacy on this planet will survive. Good luck. My son, get revenge for my demise. Destroy all of my enemies.
Nothing is more closely associated with grief than death. Piccolo knew this better than anyone. As he entered the world, his closest family member was at the end of their life. Demon King Piccolo put his last moments towards creating a son, a demon who would avenge him and keep the fire of evil alive. These words were a prophecy, and Piccolo, inheriting his father's memories, took those words in stride. He devoted himself to revenge at birth, but not just out of blind obligation, out of grief, and more specifically, out of denial, grief's first stage. So how did deciding to kill everyone go for Piccolo? He was feared before he even made a move. Kami saw from heaven that this Piccolo had more latent power than the original could ever claim. The Demon King's clone had been dedicated to destroying Goku and conquering the world, and to Kami, this new Piccolo wasn't even an individual. He was a spore, empowered to carry on his father's legacy of evil. It would even be fair to say that Kami made this potential statement expecting Piccolo to sit around and wait for 3 years, but that's not what happened. Piccolo trained and improved. His father feared the Mafuba, so he learned how to reflect it. His father sent out minions to isolate and kill martial artists, but Piccolo Jr. went directly to the source and fought them one by one. He even admitted that conquering the Earth may not be as easy as he thought after his fight with Krillin. So Piccolo gets rewarded by the story after facing these obstacles head on with power. Kami may have thought he'd be able to take a human body and nip the problem in the bud, but this new Piccolo has no weaknesses. It turns out he's become so strong that it wouldn't matter how many people jump in the ring, he'll defeat them all on the way to his goal. But there is one person who shatters all this preparation. Son Goku doesn't know the Mafuba, and he wouldn't seal an opponent anyways. It would ruin the fight. Goku's perfectly fine with fighting Piccolo one-on-one. In fact, he won't let his friends help him. It would break the tournament rules. Goku is the best martial artist on the planet and the walking, talking reason why the Demon King was right to fear Mataito's school. Piccolo knows this. He came to the tournament for Goku alone, but the ending to their fight is foreshadowed before the first round is fully over. There's another new and improved version of an old enemy at this tournament, Tao Pai Pai. With his new body, he targets Tien, gets matched up against him in the tournament, and gets beaten up. Piccolo would be no different, even if his fight with his target wouldn't happen for another 20 chapters. When Goku and Piccolo finally come into direct conflict, Piccolo can't help but wonder why Goku makes the choices he makes. Why protect worthless humans when sentiment is a weakness? According to Piccolo, being evil frees you to do whatever you want. Goku is limited because he cares about Kami and needs to protect his friends. Piccolo, on the other hand, can fight full on because he isn't tethered to anyone. But is that true? Isn't Piccolo here to avenge his father's death? What would he be doing right now if he hadn't have been put on a crash course for revenge at birth? Well, I guess it doesn't matter. Goku is strong enough to protect his friends, smart enough to save Kami, and tough enough to pull out the victory after having all his limbs broken. Piccolo might have prepared, but he just couldn't beat Goku. He failed. But Piccolo is no stranger to defeat. We still haven't seen the limit of that potential Kami feared from him, and over the time skip, Piccolo does what he does best, training fiercely every day. He still has plans for the world. Gohan's kidnapping by Raditz may have thrown a wrench into things, but even when Piccolo and Goku team up, we get hints towards the fight that may have happened between these two if things had been different. It's clear that the special being canon isn't a complete technique yet, but by the time the other two Saiyans arrive, Piccolo is firing it off near instantly. Despite this new trick though, Goku seems to have kept the promise he made after the tournament. He'll be the stronger of this pair for the rest of the series, and if they had fought then, Goku doubtlessly would have won. So where does that leave Piccolo? Well, the world kind of fell into his hands after Goku died. The only person strong enough to fight him is now dead. Even though the other Saiyans are on their way, there's a massive gap between Piccolo and everyone else on Earth. The Demon King would have taken control in an instant, but Piccolo isn't his father. Instead of acting selfishly in the face of this new problem, Piccolo takes the lead. He propels Krillin and the others to act with the threat of death, decisively takes Goku's son under his wing, and gives his former enemies instructions to revive his greatest foe. They'll need Goku's help. These may seem like signs of Piccolo becoming a better person, but he's really been like this since birth. Do you think his father would have trained quietly for 3 years and shown up on schedule to fight at a tournament? I don't really think so. No wonder he doesn't take over the planet even when it's basically handed to him here. Goku tells Gohan that Piccolo isn't like his father before the Saiyan arc even starts, mind you, so that observation had to be based off the 23rd tournament. Kami notices these differences as well. Raditz' soul goes to the afterlife after all, which wouldn't have happened if Piccolo was the demon clansman his father tried to make him. It turns out Piccolo isn't a spore or a clone, he's his own person. A common enemy simply thrusts these new aspects of Piccolo's identity into the spotlight. It turns out, when push comes to shove, Piccolo will fight to protect the Earth, but Toriyama adds in one extra thing to truly show us who this new Piccolo is: Son Gohan. These two actually have a little bit in common. Their fathers are dead, they also both have more potential than their predecessors. In the face of these similarities, Piccolo tells Gohan to curse his own fate and leaves him in the wilderness to survive. But doesn't that sound familiar? Piccolo grew up in the wilderness training for revenge, and now he expects Gohan to do the same, at least for a little while. Is that the fate that Piccolo is talking about here? That burden of revenge? That solitude? Gohan wants to be a scholar, and Piccolo tells him that he can do whatever he wants when the Earth is safe. With this in mind, it becomes apparent that Piccolo was never free to do whatever he pleased, to fight and live full on. He's had a responsibility weighing on him since he was born. So what does Piccolo himself want to do? It seems like everybody around him notices these contradictions but him. He's in denial. No matter how deep the grief though, each stage has to have its own logical conclusion. So when Piccolo learns that he's a Namekian, that denial that was blinding him to his nature gets stripped away. Now he knows more about his origins than his father ever did, so in the face of that revelation, Piccolo proceeds to tell us more about himself than he ever has. He says that his specialty is combat. So what does Piccolo fight for? Well, he fights to prove that the Earth won't go down so easily. He fights with strategy, giving his allies instructions on how to win. He fights with a love of combat, the first to pick apart Krillin's technique and the one to volunteer to teach Gohan how to fight. He also has the pride of a martial artist, refusing to admit that he'll need to depend on Goku and work with a team to survive here. And no wonder, he's earned that pride. He trained as hard and long as anyone else on Earth for this. But most importantly right now, he fights to protect Gohan. When his student faces death, Piccolo is the one who stands in the way, and it's this motivation of protecting Gohan that completely exposes who Piccolo truly is at his core. Even here though, denial persists. Piccolo can't even fully admit why he did what he did. He can't own up to the sentiment that drove him to protect his enemy's son, even if it's the same sentiment that drove him to avenge his father. After all, apparently attachments are the ultimate limitation, right? Goku and Gohan must have infected Piccolo with their softness. In reality, his most honest words are his last. Piccolo chose to sacrifice himself because Gohan was the only one who really talked to him. Watching from above, Kami says that he's been surpassed, but it can't be because of strength. Piccolo had been stronger than Kami for a while. The true milestone here is Piccolo arriving at a crossroads, making a decision, and coming out on the side of good. After all that failure, Piccolo has arrived on his own path, and he can't deny it.
Just get me to planet Namek and we'll teach this Frieza the true meaning of the word wrath. What?
Contrary to popular opinion, Piccolo's development does not end after the Saiyan saga. His first death is really nothing but a waiting room, a transitionary period before we get a continuation of the same struggle with him. During the Namek saga, Piccolo is angry, Grief's second stage. To be fair to him though, there's plenty to be upset about. Frieza is slaughtering his way across Namek in search of the Dragon Balls. As if that wasn't enough, Goku has completely left Piccolo in the dust in terms of power, so Piccolo trains with King Kai to catch up. Now, it's Goku doing the rigorous solo training while Piccolo studies with a teacher. Despite that role reversal though, Piccolo is still a delegator at heart. He tells Goku to revive him with the Dragon Balls and promises to surpass him. Even Frieza won't be a problem if they fight together, but before this can happen, things worsen on Namek. Piccolo might lose his entire race before he can meet a single other Namekian. When Gohan and Krillin summon Porunga, he demands that they revive him and summon him to Namek to fight. Despite this insistence though, when Piccolo gets there, he still isn't strong enough to change much, which brings us to Nail. It turns out Namekians are split into two main groups. The Dragon Clan deals with magic. They heal, unlock potential, and make Dragon Balls. Dende and the Great Elder fall into this category. The warrior clan, on the other hand, deals with combat, and Namek only has one true warrior, being Nail. According to Krillin, Nail is stronger than any Namekian. His intuition regarding the Great Elder's safety is sharp, and he turns back to protect him from Frieza on a whim, and he's extremely strong-willed, enough to endure torture. Nail fundamentally is a protector. So with that in mind, how does Piccolo fit into these groups? Is he a warrior, or is he from the Dragon Clan? Well, we know that the Namekian who would split into Kami and Piccolo was left in the wastelands with no memory of how he got there as a child. In fact, it seems like this family line has a habit of leaving children in the wilderness, but that aside, the Great Elder says that this Namekian was a genius from the Dragon Clan. Well, I guess that makes sense. Kami made the Dragon Balls, sees things happening down on Earth, and fixed Goku's tail so that it wouldn't grow back during his training. That's all magic. But what about Piccolo? Even though he's half of a Dragon Clan member, he has to be a warrior, right? I mean, he said it himself during the Saiyan saga. So what does being a warrior mean to Piccolo? Does it change after he assimilates Nail? Because Piccolo serves as the base, his personality remains dominant, but that doesn't mean he was unaffected by gaining the memories of a completely different life. So is Piccolo a protector like Nail? He rescues Gohan and buys time for Goku's Spirit Bomb after all. Could he be a bodyguard just like Nail, just with a different priority? I personally don't think so. Piccolo went out of his way to fight Frieza. Yes, he wanted to protect Gohan, but his fundamental priority was to avenge his people. He's angry. It's also not just Frieza that Piccolo is angry with. He also wants to kill Vegeta. Clearly, Piccolo isn't a Nail carbon copy now, even if they may fit into the same Namekian clan and are fused. So, it's clear that Piccolo has his own priorities. He still has the pride of a martial artist. He complains about King Kai not teaching him the Spirit Bomb, which calls back to his promise to surpass Goku. Even after Namek, Piccolo keeps training fiercely every day. He chooses not to leave Earth with the other Namekians because that would be boring. So Piccolo is continuing to develop as a person, and even though he now carries another piece of Namek inside of him with Nail, he chooses to continue to follow the path of martial arts, fighting for his own reasons, some of which happen to be anger at the moment. In the background though, other Namekians are constantly commenting on Piccolo's fragmented status. He might be strong, but if he had remained whole, he would be on a completely different level. The Great Elder theorized that only a Super Saiyan would have plausibly been able to beat that Namekian, but even if becoming whole might make Piccolo stronger than Goku, would he be able to hold on to himself if he did that?
What? What are you talking about? Talk, you old fool! What's monstrous?
Piccolo never would have rejoined with Kami on his own. His training with Goku and Gohan made it clear that he still hasn't reached the bottom of that potential that Kami noticed all those years ago. Dr. Gero calls him the second strongest after Vegeta, and it really does seem like Piccolo just keeps improving. Even his strategies have reached a new level, with him playing dead to draw the androids away from Goku, and him being able to take the same kind of surprise attack move that Frieza hit him with after training is a nice touch. His combat knowledge is night and day from the 23rd tournament. He's gone from the gullible fighter who Goku was able to easily trick to the first to notice Vegeta's stamina disadvantage against Android 18. If things hadn't spiraled out of control, maybe Piccolo would have caught up to Goku one day, but instead, the threat of Cell forces Piccolo to bargain, Grief's third stage. Just like Son Gohan did during the Saiyan saga, Cell reveals something about Piccolo that we just didn't know before. I won't spend too much time talking about Cell here as he needs his own video, but it's around this time in the story that Piccolo's priorities expand again. He might have been training to surpass Goku before Frieza's return and to avoid death at the hands of the androids after Trunks' warning, but after his defeat at the hands of these same androids, Piccolo needs more power. Krillin says that Piccolo plans to rejoin with Kami to become the strongest, but even he misses the mark here a little bit. Yes, Piccolo wants to defeat the androids, but he also wanted to defeat the Saiyans. The difference is this time, he truly wants to protect the Earth and there's no denying it. To save lives, he'll do anything he needs to do. He started off as evil incarnate, split from Kami after all, so he's not soft like he thinks Goku is. It's interesting how both Piccolo and Goku both end up making sacrifices this arc, especially after they both came to Earth, lost their memories, and then found the identities that they wanted to have, but that aside, the Earth doesn't need a god right now, it needs a warrior with the power to defeat these new enemies. When Piccolo rejoins with Kami, he tells Popo that he's no longer Kami or Piccolo, just a Namekian who no longer remembers their true name. Of course though, Piccolo served as the base for this assimilation, and it's the sum of his identity and experiences that dictate this new Namekian's actions. In fact, things actually seem to have worked out pretty well for Piccolo. With Kami's mind, he can trick Cell into revealing his background and plans, and with his new power, he rivals the androids, forcing Cell to flee. Now, that freedom to act that Piccolo claimed to have during the 23rd tournament is actually within his grasp. He's fully sentimental, just as attentive towards the lives of individuals as a Kami or Goku, which puts him directly at odds with someone like Cell, and he gets to keep his personality on top of that. When Goku asks him what he should call him, Piccolo says he's mostly Piccolo, so that'll work. The situation is too good to be true, so of course it ends up being temporary.
You are of no value to me anymore. You are just refuse.
Piccolo may not be a stranger to defeat, but his loss to Cell here is more than just a failure. This fight was supposed to be the culmination of an entire arc's worth of buildup, but instead, Piccolo is left clinging to life with his neck broken. It turns out Piccolo isn't finished struggling yet. In fact, he's now in grief's 4th stage, depression. For us to understand why this wasn't a normal loss, we have to think about what Piccolo sacrificed to get here. Assimilating Kami came with consequences. On the largest scale, there are now no Dragon Balls on Earth. Sure, if Piccolo had died before rejoining with Kami, they would have disappeared, but think about it for a second. Assimilation is a permanent end to Dragon Balls on Earth, at least at the moment. It doesn't even matter if Kurunga revives Piccolo after he dies, that won't change the fact that Kami is gone now. On top of that, now that they're fused, there's no going back. They can never split again, especially since most of Piccolo's evil is gone, which was how Kami split himself to begin with. Piccolo's now in a tough spot. He has to be strong enough to solve this problem as a warrior, because if he isn't, there's no fixing things with the Dragon Balls. On a personal level, Piccolo also threw away some of his pride by going to Kami for power. He's been training to surpass Goku since the 23rd tournament, and his progress has been incredible. He went from weaker than Raditz to about as strong as a Super Saiyan, all without any transformations. Who knows how strong he could get through training if he kept going, but Cell and the androids forced his hand. He has to get stronger instantly, and the only way to do that is through Kami, even if it means swallowing his pride. To add insult to injury, people have been telling Piccolo that if he were whole, he'd be strong enough to beat anybody. The Great Elder implied that it would have taken a Super Saiyan to beat a complete Piccolo when the Saiyans came to Earth during the Saiyan Saga. Nail goes on to say that a complete Piccolo would be able to beat First Form Frieza with no problem if he weren't split. So with all that in mind, it's really just a cruel twist of fate to make this hyped up power up fall short as soon as Piccolo gets it. So let's talk about why that happens. For one, 16 says that Piccolo now rivals the androids in power. We see his fight with 17, and it's pretty obvious that 16 was correct, but it's equally clear that rivaling an android isn't enough to beat them in an actual fight. Vegeta, for example, was kind of hanging with 18 early on, but when he ran out of stamina, he got beaten up. Now, with Piccolo, the gap between him and 17 isn't as big, but the same problem is still there. Even if he's tough enough to take hits, he was still running out of energy and was gonna lose even if Cell didn't show up. To beat the androids, you need to gap them power-wise and blow them up before they can stretch the fight out, just like Trunks does when he gets back to the future. Piccolo being too weak to kill 17 gets even worse when you realize that that was kind of Piccolo's whole plan. Of course, Piccolo was stronger than Cell at first, but after Cell got away, Piccolo knew that destroying one of the androids was going to be the only way he was going to stop him. On top of that, things are really terrible because Piccolo, who is now so concerned about individual lives, is basically forced to watch as Cell gets stronger than him by killing entire cities worth of people. On top of that, at this point, the Saiyans completely leave Piccolo behind in terms of power. Vegeta and Trunks get Super Saiyan Grade 2, Goku and Gohan master the form completely, and Piccolo takes his turn in the chamber and doesn't get strong enough to do much of anything. Nothing went right for Piccolo here. He threw away his pride, sacrificed the Dragon Balls, and now he can't even train to get stronger with the closest thing to unlimited time in the series. If you were in his shoes, wouldn't you be wondering if you made the wrong choice? Of course though, there's always an upside to a low point. For Piccolo, he can only go up from here.
So, Piccolo, are you gonna live up here from now on?
Yes, why do you ask?
Is it alright if I drop in once in a while?
You had better.
When you frame Piccolo's growth around his identity like this, things get a lot clearer when it comes to the story. It turns out, Piccolo was one of the best foils to Goku in the series. They both get left on Earth with no connection to where they were. In a situation like that, you have to decide who you're gonna be. For Piccolo and Goku, the journey towards identity may be a difficult one, but the choice at the end ends up being the same. These two decide to be Earthlings. They learn about being aliens in the same arc, they interact with other members of their species in the same stretch of the story, and they're both forced to learn about themselves in the process. So why the theme of grief for this video? What was Piccolo grieving? It was himself. The name he could never remember, the life he could have had on Namek if he hadn't been sent to Earth, his father and the responsibility he was given at birth, the person he thought he needed to be and the fate he thought he was doomed to follow, the failures he endured on the way. The final stage of grief is acceptance, and after his lowest point, Piccolo came to terms with who he had been all along. Not just a nameless Namekian, not just a clone of the Demon King, not just God's dark half. A warrior with the pride of a martial artist and the pride of Namek, a fighter who protects life for its own sake, a protector who shields those who were kind to him. He'll accept what's been given to him by Nail and Kami to do what he wants, which is the ultimate freedom he claimed to have all those chapters ago. He looks down on Earth, monitoring what's happening with Vegeta, Trunks, and Cell. He advocates for Gohan when Goku sends him down to fight Cell. He leads the group in their wishes on the Dragon Balls after the fighting ends. He stays by Dende's side and lives in the sanctuary, but he's still a fighter at heart, so he agrees to fight in the tournament when Gohan tells him about it in the Buu saga. He leads the way against Babidi and Buu when there's no one else to rely on. So in the end, Piccolo overcame his grief and accepted that identity that he had been building in the background this entire time. I think Piccolo is one of the greatest characters in Dragon Ball, and he is severely underrated. If you made it this far into the video, thank you so much for watching. If you want to see more Dragon Ball character analysis videos like this, definitely let me know in the comments, and of course, if you made it this far into the video, definitely think about subscribing. Other than that, have a good day.